Yeah, I wanted to talk. The question was like, if you wanted to walk us through like the whole EigenLabs investigation, like what drove you to it, how the process went, and then the spicy stuff at the end.
So maybe for those who don't know about the scoop, which is probably most people, very much most people, basically what happened was EigenLayer, big Ethereum protocol, it's run built by EigenLabs and the Eigen Foundation, which is the nonprofit that kind of is like the steward of it. We, myself and my colleague Danny Nelson, who I mentioned earlier, found that EigenLabs had been distributing a list of a bunch of addresses, crypto addresses, belonging to its employees, and it had been distributing that list to other projects in the EigenLayer ecosystem. Essentially, all these projects that we're going to use EigenLayer as a public good were also many of them were given a list of EigenLayer or EigenLabs developers and employees, with the kind of tacit understanding, according to our reporting, being that, hey, you should kick back some of your tokens to EigenLabs. And so there's some caveats that we can get to around, whether that agreement was explicit, implicit, or even interpreted that way as like a kind of, some it seemed like a shakedown. For some, it was just like, we would have given them the tokens anyway, and we were happy to have this list. So there are some nuances there, but it goes to conflicts of interest in crypto. It's like if you're building software that's supposed to power all these different things, whatever, should you be getting their tokens? That process started about 6 or 7 months ago when I got a tip that this had happened, and I had actually seen messages confirming it about a month or two later, so I didn't do anything with it for a while. But kind of once I had seen messages of an EigenLabs employee sending around this list, I was like, oh, wow, this is pretty serious, but I don't want to report on this unless I can figure out, A, that it's like really real. Even a text isn't always enough. You really need multiple sources. And B, I wanted to get the full story. Is this a normal thing to do in crypto? Is it a normal thing to kind of ask other projects in your ecosystem to kick back their tokens when they launch them? Or is that a weird thing? So basically that sent me down this very, very long path along with Danny, who ultimately came in and did some really, really great blockchain research. He essentially was the one who found all of the projects that had given their tokens to EigenLayer, at least a set of them. And from there, we were able to be like, hey, why did you give your tokens to EigenLabs? And, we ended up talking to a bunch of teams, and some of them told us that, they felt pressured. Some said that it wasn't normal. Some said that it was very normal and they didn't feel pressured. And we put that all at the piece, and there was a big backlash. And I'll stop there. But yeah.
No, that was a great overview, but now you're going to have to get straight back into it because now we want to hear like the controversial side of things. I appreciate you tossing it back at me and being like, all right, I'll take a break for a second. If you
I, as a person who does these interviews, most of the time I'm very mindful of when somebody can keep going and going. And I can definitely do that. But if I must, so there, first, I think so initially, and this I found happens a lot of times with investigative pieces, you get a lot of responses like, wow, shocked that this is happening. You get praise from, as a journalist, since this is like a journalist podcast, like that feels relevant. Like people are like, hey, this is, great job digging this up, which isn't what you're like going for as a journalist. But those are the sorts of responses that are coming in. But a couple days later is when the subjects, I guess, have time to, mount their rebuttal to the extent that there needs to be a rebuttal in something like this. And that's certainly what happened here, where EigenLabs, which knew exactly what we were going to report, and that is a practice that I carry till now. I try to be as transparent as possible, short of sending people an article with like, if we're gonna write something that might be unfavorable, from your perspective, I want you to know exactly what it is, so you don't feel like you've been, done dirty or something. So EigenLabs knew exactly what to expect, and they responded basically being like, there was no pressure here. And also many other EigenLayer, not many, one in particular, EigenLayer ecosystem project came out and said, hey, you interviewed me and you were clearly looking for dirt, and you didn't put my story in there. But A, this person had asked to be off the record, so I couldn't put their story in there. And B, everything that they told me in this interview was also already in the piece about like other projects that had shared their experience. So I was a little confused and remain confused about why this sort of attack dog thing happened. But there was some of that. So it kicked off a really broad industry conversation, I think, around conflicts of interest. And I think it was covered really well by some of our peers in the, crypto press. Like Blockworks in particular did some really great podcasts on it that went deeper through some aspects than I even could with Danny in our article. But there was also that backlash, which you could expect.